and welcome to this Good Vibes Experiment mini virtual workshop. My name's Gareth, I'm one of the GVE team, and today we're going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes looking at one of the key components of the GVE campaign, which is this activity book. So if you aren't a Flinders student, then it's going to be fairly hard for you to get your hands on one of these books. Although we've included a link below to a digital copy, so you can still actually have a look at the book. But if you are a Flinders student and you haven't seen yet or grabbed one of these books on campus, you can still order a hard copy version to get posted out to you. Again, also the link below to where you put your details to get that book. So what is the activity book? Well, to answer that question, it might help to explain a little bit about the GVE campaign more broadly. So back in 2020, there was a group of organisations or a group of support services within Flinders. So that included the Student Association, FUSA, that included Health Counselling and Disability Services, where I sit, and included OASIS. We were funded or given some money to do a mental health campaign. And the overarching goal was just to make sure that at Flinders as a university as a whole, we were talking about mental health openly. And we wanted to continue to reduce that ongoing stigma of discussing mental health, particularly coming out of a challenging period like 2020 and the challenges that still exist because of COVID. And in addition to kind of reducing the stigma of talking about mental health, we also wanted to provide practical advice and tools and ideas for improving one's mental health or for working on one's mental health. So we pulled together a team, and that team consisted of essentially 3 different groups. So we had mental health professionals like myself, we had designers and communicators, so a shout out to Steph and Jess from Flinders, and a shout out to Mango Chutney, who are an organisation that collaborated with us on the project. And then we had students themselves, so student representatives, wellbeing ambassadors, volunteers, students who essentially generously donated their time to help us build an interesting and engaging campaign. And as a group, what we wanted to do was create an item or items for students that were fun and engaging, so that you wanted to pick them up, you wanted to interact with them, but that also had an underlying and embedded deeper message within them that had the potential to have a positive impact on someone's mental health. So we started first with this question of, well, what kinds of activities help a person build their mental health? And that was kind of my part of the job as a mental health professional. So what I did is I drew on, I guess, a number of resources that I was already aware of that had done a lot of this background work in understanding what sorts of activities contribute to mental health. So 2 in particular. So one is the Greater Good in Action work that's come out of Berkeley in California. And the other is the Be Well Plan work that's come out of the Wellbeing and Resilience Centre in South Australia. And I've included links to both of those in the information below. But those 2 groups have spent a lot of time understanding what sorts of activities contribute to improved mental health over time. And you can think of them as the kind of activities that a psychologist might recommend that you do if they thought that you were struggling with mental ill health or that you had the goal of building your well-being over time. So examples include things like meditation, gratitude, compassion, or how we think, our social support network, and things like that. Now, in their clinical form, many of these activities, or tactics as we started calling them, wellbeing tactics, can be quite time and effort consuming. Right? So, for example, if you took up or did a meditation program, it would probably involve multiple sessions over multiple weeks with meditation homework exercises as part of that. Or if you did a cognitive therapy program that looked at the relationship between how you think and your belief system and how you feel, then that would also probably involve multiple sessions or multiple exercises done in a digital form. Now, because GVE is a campaign and not a clinical service, our goal wasn't really to just distribute clinical materials. Our goal was more to do something that was engaging, that got people to experiment with and think about these kinds of ideas, opening them up, I guess, to the possibility that there are diverse pathways to improving their experience of life and improving their mental health. So what we did as a group is we started with these wellbeing tactics, these 20 kind of evidence-based wellbeing tactics. And then we tried to brainstorm activities or ideas or ways or things that we could build on top of these tactics that still kept the kind of essence or the core message of the original tactic, but were perhaps a little more fun, a little more engaging, and a little less time consuming to actually do. Now, we ended up coming up with a lot. So we had 20 tactics as the base, and then we developed probably 2 or 3 activities for each of the tactics. So we had 40 to 60 of these activities, and we thought about how is it that we're going to package and deliver this. And the decision was ultimately made, as you've seen, to put it in an activity book format. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is a book format is just good for distributing when you've got a large amount of information, or in this case, you've got exercises to do. So just at a practical level, it's very useful for the distribution of this information. But the other thing that really drove the decision to put it into an activity book was the feedback from students that they wanted tangible and hands-on things as part of the campaign. So rather than say going for an app or a website, that having an activity book was a far more tangible and hands-on way of doing these kinds of activities. And that was really a good choice as well, because a lot of the kinds of activities that we were dealing with were things that involved journaling or drawing or colouring in. They involved the physical act of writing and drawing. So it kind of really converged and became obvious that an activity book was a really sensible way through which to do this. Now, as I said, we developed activities for each of the wellbeing tactics. So we ended up with things like when you're thinking about your support network, your social support network, we imagined that as the night sky, and the people in your support network being the stars and the galaxies that exist in that. When we had a values clarification exercise, we turned that into a find a word. So there's a simple task is to go into this find a word and find all these words, but then you're invited to think about whether or not any of those particular values resonate with you, and does that tell you something about who you are and what is important to you. And 42 of these activities ended up in the book. We've got a whole bunch of other ones sitting in a document elsewhere. We could easily do another whole book with a whole lot of set of exercises if we want. So the process worked really well. The process of getting designers, mental health professionals and students together in the same room, and then interacting via kind of email and digital means later to come up with these exercises was really effective. So in terms of how we want students to use the book, there's lots of different ways, but I guess my main recommendation is that you make the book a companion in your life for a time limited period. So maybe it sits on a bedside table, maybe you throw it into your backpack that you carry around for the day, and then whenever you have quiet moments during the day, try doing one of the activities, and then aim to do the whole book, say over a month and a half. So when you wake up, you might do an activity, or just before you go to sleep, you might do an activity, or in the 10 minutes before a lecture, you might complete or continue with one of the activities that you've started. And then when the book is full and you've done each and you've connected with each of the activities in there, ask yourself whether there are any ideas or concepts that you encountered in the book that sparked your interest or curiosity. And then use that curiosity or interest to then as a starting point for your next level of exploration. And we've included lots of links in the book for where people can go to learn more about the concepts in there, learn more about the wellbeing tactics. But depending on what resonates with you will depend on what you might pursue next. So if the meditation kind of mindfulness components really appeal to you, we've told you where you can go to maybe look into some apps or formal meditation training. If the more productivity-oriented stuff appeal to you, then we've told you where to go to find more out about study tips and evidence-based study strategies. So the book is out there. We're really happy with how it's turned out, but we're also really super keen to find out from students whether or not we've hit the mark. So if you've accessed the book and you've used it, and you completed it and you enjoyed the process, please let us know a bit more about that process. What is it that you think we got right in designing the book? But conversely, if you picked up the book, you had a look at it and then put it aside and it's been kind of collecting dust since, we want to know what you think is going on there. Like, what is it maybe that we failed to do to grab your attention? And the reason we're sort of seeking that feedback is that the activity book is really the central part of the GVE campaign. And we do see this as a pretty powerful way to disseminate similar kind of content in the future. But to do that, to build another book, to build a second version, requires that we have a good understanding of what worked and what didn't work in the first version. So you can provide feedback if you're a Flinders student at goodvibes, all one word, at flinders.edu.au. But also if you're not a Flinders student and you follow the link below and you have a look at the digital version of the book, maybe you work at another university or maybe you're a student at another university, we'd be really keen to hear your feedback as well, and you can send that through to the same email address. So goodvibes, all one word, at flinders.edu.au. So look, thank you very much for taking the time to watch or listen to this episode, and I will see you in the next one.